7 o'clock in Washington, 4 a.m. in Baghdad. Now the headlines from the war, as Fox reports tonight. A man who appears to be Saddam Hussein making not one but two appearances on television in Iraq today, and bombs and tracer fire light up a dark Baghdad skyline. First bursts of machine gun fire and anti-aircraft fire over the capital city, then this massive explosion heard at the Old Palace presidential complex, Saddam's posh house and the official seat of the Iraqi government. The sign still says Saddam International. His picture still looms overhead, but Saddam's airport now belongs to coalition forces and is now known simply as Baghdad International. Hundreds of American reinforcements now in place. No signs so far of any of the threatened non-conventional actions by the Iraqis. The soldiers hoping the seizure of the airport sends a message directly to the Iraqi people.
Hopefully this is a sign that we're able to send to the residents of Baghdad that we're here, and they can rise up and deal with the regime appropriately and save some future battles inside the city.
The Battle of Baghdad inside the city, the expected scene of some of the most intense fighting yet. On Top Story duty tonight, Major Garrett live at the Pentagon. Major?
Shepard, Saddam's beloved airport, which bears his name and stands as among the most important national and international symbols of his dictatorship, well, now it is a teeming base of coalition military operations. Helicopters are using it now, but soon, after coalition forces refill the bomb craters they themselves created to keep Iraq's leaders from fleeing by air, the airport will be a base for huge shipments of coalition personnel and humanitarian supplies. And outside the city, coalition forces continue to shred what remains of 4 Iraq Republican Guard divisions. Simultaneous ground and aerial assaults continue to strip the divisions of the equipment and the forces they need to fight.
We believe that overall, each of those remaining 4 divisions has been significantly attrited to this point, significantly degraded.
On the weapons of mass destruction front, 2 potentially significant discoveries. First, these bottles of what Central Command calls T-ban, a chemical agent that dates back to the 1940s. A special operations task force found them at a facility near Mudassis, west of Baghdad. The coalition believes that to be a chemical biological warfare training facility. Coalition forces also moved on Iraq's largest military-industrial complex. And what did they discover? Manuals written in Arabic describing chemical warfare, vials of the nerve agent antidote atropine, and thousands of vials of a white powder. The early on-site analysis suggests this white powder is an ingredient for explosives and not chemical weapons. On the northern front, which now extends from Kurdish-held territory in the far northwest all the way down to the key road leading from Baghdad to Saddam's hometown of Tikrit, coalition forces pounded Iraqi positions near Mosul. And Central Command said for the first time that coalition forces have sealed off any northern escape route from Baghdad to Tikrit.
Tikrit is an area that's very important to the regime and to certain regime leaders. We know that. We have interests regarding the regime in Tikrit. That's why you saw some targets that have addressed regime facilities in Tikrit. We certainly know that there is a link between Baghdad and Tikrit, and we have taken actions to influence that link in a variety of ways.
Far south in Basra, the British continued efforts to pacify the city and persuade its large Shia population that they would not be left defenseless as they were after the first Gulf War, to the vicious revenge of Saddam's regime. And Shepard, today that meant in part handing out leaflets that read, "This time we won't abandon you." One other thing before I toss it back, Shep, we just got some statistics from the Air Force about Air Force and Navy strike attacks today in Iraq. 560 of them, all targeting Iraqi ground forces. And to our ears, the strongest language ever issued by the Air Force about the impact of these strike raids. Quote, "We are currently killing top Iraqi leadership and destroying regime and military capability." We'd heard about the destruction of regime and military capability before, but to our ears, this is the strongest signal yet that key Iraqi leaders are in fact being killed. Shepard, back to you.
Major Garrett, live tonight at the Pentagon.
Tonight.
Dead man walking. New Saddam videotapes and the same old questions. When were they shot? Is it really he or a body double? Tonight, why it's so important in suppressing resistance. Grounded. Coalition forces taking control of Saddam International Airport and giving it a new name. The Allies continue to pound what's left of the Republican Guard. while Iraq promises to defend Baghdad tonight in an unconventional way. Northern exposure, the Kurds and the coalition sending the Iraqis reeling. And the first American journalist killed in Iraq. Day 16 of Operation Iraqi Freedom, as Fox reports right now.
Live from the world headquarters of Fox News in New York, this is the Fox Report with Shepard Smith. Fair news, balanced news, now.
These are the men who would fight in the streets of Baghdad, a loosely organized militia playing war games in ditches they've dug alongside city streets. Thousands of other Iraqis gathering up their belongings and getting out of the capital city. At one point, the stream of cars leaving it stretched 6 miles long, that from embedded reporters. The capital city has no power. Some sections have no running water. These militiamen saying that they hope they get a shot at fighting British and American soldiers, training for what they refer to as a fight to the death. We have Team Fox coverage with America at War, Jim Engel at the White House, Chris Klein in northern Iraq. First, Jennifer Eccleston, live outside our newsroom in Amman, Jordan. Jennifer?
Hi there, Shep. A concerted effort out of Baghdad today to demonstrate that the Iraqi president, Saddam Hussein, is alive. Now, we saw 2 pieces of extraordinary and unexpected video coming from Iraqi television. The latest video we have, the president glad-handing with groups of people in the capital city. Saddam, dressed in military uniform, was mobbed by cheering Iraqis, some of them kissing his cheek and his hands. The Iraqi leader holding up a small child. The Iraqi TV said he visited a number of buildings that were allegedly bombed by U.S. warplanes. Of course, as you mentioned, no way to actually verify whether this is indeed Saddam Hussein. We know he has a number of doubles. No way to date these pictures, although in some of the images we saw the pall of smoke in the background, possibly from oil fires in the city or from coalition bombing runs. Now, no way to actually verify whether the people in those crowds were actually normal Iraqi citizens. There is some speculation from analysts that they could be perhaps members of Saddam Hussein's paramilitary forces dressed as civilians. Now, earlier, Iraqi TV aired a statement by President Saddam Hussein where he was exhorting his people to take up arms against the invaders, using whatever means possible to hit them hard with the force of their faith. Now, the interesting aspect of this speech is that there is a time reference to the March 24th downed Apache helicopter that the Iraqis claim was taken down by a farmer using small arms fire. Saddam Hussein used this alleged event to rally support among the people to continue their attacks on U.S. and coalition forces. Now, this tape appears to be the strongest evidence so far that Saddam Hussein survived that March 20 raid, that first night of the war, where he and his sons were alleged to be sleeping in a compound outside or in the Baghdad suburbs. Now, these clips were shown on a day where U.S. force, as Major Garrett mentioned earlier, took over Baghdad International Airport, the new name now, formerly Saddam Hussein International Airport. They're now 12 miles southwest of the capital. Iraq's information minister, Mohammed al-Sayef, who just yesterday said the American and coalition forces were nowhere near the airport, nowhere near Baghdad. Today, changing his tune at a press conference, he said the U.S. forces at the airport were surrounded by Iraqi forces. He said it will be their graveyard. He also said Iraqi forces will use unconventional methods to repel and defeat the enemy. Asked whether those methods would be weapons of mass destruction, he said no, they would be acts of martyrdom, and they will begin this very evening. Back to you, Shep.
Jennifer Eccleston, live outside our newsroom in Amman, Jordan. The 82nd Airborne getting into an intense firefight as they approach Baghdad, battling in Samawa, Iraq. That's down south. Our producer, Maya Zumwalt, is embedded with the 82nd and witnessed the shootout firsthand. Maya joins us now on the phone, that is, from the front lines. And Maya, I guess this firefight's been going on for 6 days or so. What have you seen, and is it nearing its end?
You know, they are up against paramilitary, irregular army, and members of the Republican Guard inside this town of Samawa. 2 firefights I witnessed today at my current location. The first incident appears to have been a drive-by shooting. A white bus was driving by. This is a bus that soldiers with the 82nd have seen on at least 10 different occasions, and has never given them a problem before. But this time, there was a truck following it from behind, and it had a large container in the back of the truck that were carrying rocket-propelled grenades. In this incident, I can report that there were no U.S. soldiers that were injured at all. But right at about the same time, another firefight happened around, and it was one company that was relieving another company that was on duty, and there was an enemy ambush that was set up between the two friendly units. And in this incident, unfortunately, 5 U.S. soldiers were injured with the 82nd Airborne Division, but I can tell you that none of those injuries are life-threatening and are mainly shrapnel wounds. Shep.
Maya Zumwalt reporting tonight from the southern town of Samawa in Iraq.
Coming up.
The rescued American prisoner of war, Private First Class Jessica Lynch, said to be feeling a lot better today. In fact, she's putting in some specific requests. We'll tell you what those requests are as Fox reports tonight. An all-American meal on the way. And we'll take you to the other front line in southern Iraq, where British soldiers are battling for control of Basra, killing at least 8 more militiamen in house-to-house searches to rid the city of Iraqi resistance. And this surprise appearance by the man who claims he's Saddam Hussein, or at least a man believed to be Saddam. But if it's he, what is this alter our war plans? From the news capital of the world, live to homes around the globe, this is your news, fair and balanced. This is your source for a comprehensive update on the war. This is the Fox Report from FNC.
Have you made the move to Allegra for your seasonal allergies? Doesn't sound like it. Allegra for multi-symptom relief. See your doctor for people 12 and over. Side effects are low and may include headache, cold, or back pain. Allegra, it's time to switch.
Frustrated by itching and flaking? Get the power of 3. Unlike most other medicated shampoos, Neutrogena T-Gel works on all 3 itchy, flaky scalp conditions. Be confident with the one that works on all 3. #1 dermatologist recommended Neutrogena T-Gel.
Mr. Hogan is here to talk about software.
Yeah.
Beautiful day, isn't it? So, how much software would you like to buy?
We're thinking about a license for 20 servers.
Great! 500 it is.
We're not that big of a company.
Great! 500 it is.
Mr. Williams for 230 is here.
Excuse me.
Great!
Thank you.
Does any software company actually listen? We do. Introducing FlexSelect Licensing from Computer Associates.
Tonight,
Coalition Special Operations have been very busy all around Iraq.
the latest from the front lines.
This is the fight they came here for.
The most up-to-the-minute coverage.
U.S. forces close in on Baghdad.
Operation Iraqi Freedom. At 8, it's the O'Reilly Factor. At 9, watch Hannity and Combs. At 10, Greta goes on the record.
Late breaking tonight, huge new explosions reported in northern Iraq. Coalition warplanes blasting away at Iraqi positions. The heavy airstrikes helping ground troops drive the Iraqis south toward Mosul. Coalition forces getting help from the Kurdish fighters there, even though Saddam's apparently making a last-ditched attempt to turn the Kurds against the Allies. That's a story you'll see on just one network. Team Fox coverage continues now. Chris Klein live in northern Iraq. Chris?
Shepard, exactly right. An astonishing development and an exclusive revelation made to Fox News. We've learned that on April 2nd, Saddam Hussein, or at least someone purported to be Saddam Hussein, or someone at least very close to the inner circle of the Baghdad regime center of power, sent a letter to both the presidents, Jalal Talabani and Masoud Barzani, of the Kurdish regional government. This letter, a very menacing letter, a very florid letter, but also a letter trying to court favor with the Kurds, asking them essentially to forget the oppression of the past and be true Iraqi patriots and join the fight against the Allies rather than creating a northern front. I'll give you an example. A quote from Saddam, apparently, I sincerely warn you not to do anything that you will suffer from. Do not dream that the Iraqi president and the Iraqi government will be destroyed. Clearly a defiant note there as well, lots of invective labeling coalition forces the damned, imperialist forces, and devilish invaders. The response from the Kurds, unequivocal. Response by Talabani labeling the letter utter nonsense, irrelevant, and unfair. And a reply in turn, we warn you that if you are truly faithful to the people of Iraq, you should no longer conduct a reckless war you will lose, and submit your resignation. Now, really astonishing given that Allied forces are on the outskirts of Baghdad. Truly astonishing given that the Kurds for 12 years fought very hard to achieve the autonomy that they've preserved. Astonishing in light of 1988 and Halabja and the slaughter of 5,000 people to chemical weapons, and the slaughter indeed in the same year of perhaps 100,000 to as many as 300,000 Kurds in the Anfal campaign, which was meant to sow terror as much as it was trying to attain any military objectives and crush Kurdish resistance. A genocidal policy. How anyone in Baghdad would think that the Kurds would suddenly suffer from collective amnesia, difficult to say. Shepard.
Chris Klein live for us in northern Iraq. Chris, thanks. The president planning another summit with his closest ally in the coalition, the United Kingdom's Prime Minister, Tony Blair. They're set to meet Monday and Tuesday in Northern Ireland. It'll be their third meeting in as many weeks. The White House says they'll talk about bringing peace to the Mideast and Northern Ireland, and of course the future of Iraq. So does that mean the war is almost over?
Given the fact that they met at Camp David just a week ago, I don't know that people said that's a sign it's coming to an end. In fact, at the time they were meeting in Camp David, everybody was saying, isn't it going terribly? It's off plan. So they meet as often as they think is necessary.
The president also meeting with Iraqi exiles at the White House, while experts try to figure out whether the leader is still living. Team Fox coverage continues now. The senior White House correspondent Jim Engel live tonight on the North Lawn. Jim?
Hello, Shep. Well, those two new tapes of Saddam Hussein had officials thinking today, for the first time since the war began, that the Iraqi leader may indeed be alive. Now, first, Saddam's reference in a speech to that U.S. helicopter down on March 24th was, said one government official, the most specific reference to a recent event we've seen in a Saddam video. Intelligence analysts and other officials said it was significant, but not quite enough to prove Saddam is alive.
The tape does not give us any firm conclusions one way or another.
But then a later videotape showed Saddam walking around Baghdad, though no destruction was seen. The sky was filled with smoke, which officials concluded was from coalition bombing attacks, leading one government source to say there is a high probability the video is relatively recent and that it is indeed Saddam, which brought this reaction from the Pentagon.
And we find it interesting that Saddam Hussein, if he is alive, feels the need to walk in the street to prove that.
Now, regardless of what any tapes of Saddam show, spokesman R.A. Fleischer said that whether he's dead or alive is really beyond beside the point.
In the bigger scheme of things, it really doesn't matter, because whether it is him or whether it isn't him, the regime's days are numbered and are coming to an end.
Now, later today, the president met with Iraqi exiles and assured them that the job of removing Saddam would be done. And one exile said Iraq, known as the cradle of civilization, is now looking forward to being the cradle of democracy. Shep?
Jim, you know, this question of whether he's alive or not, so many are saying it's really irrelevant. Heard Colin Powell say that today. But if we could prove he were dead, that might be something quite different from irrelevant. Couldn't it, in fact, cause the resistance to crumble?
Well, it could, because Iraqis might fight if, in fact, they think he is alive. But that's why the president and other officials and Prime Minister Blair have all been saying over and over again that at the end of this war, there is no way, no how, that Saddam will be left in power. That is the viewpoint they're trying to get across to Iraqis, to say it's inevitable he'll be gone, so you don't have to worry. Shep?
Jim Engel, live at the White House. 2 British soldiers killed in Iraq, their bodies paraded on television. The Prime Minister says the men were executed. Tonight, a possible break in that case. The illness known as SARS, killing dozens of people around the globe, but it's still somewhat of a mystery to scientists. Researchers already hard at work on a vaccine, as Fox reports tonight.
This program is brought to you by Fuji Photo Film, a leading provider of professional and broadcast audio and video recording products.
And now by the authority vested in...
So young, naive. I bet they don't have a clue. Or that insurance.
What insurance?
The one that pays you cash if you're sick and can't work.
What one's that?
The name is...
Aflac. Ask about it at work.
Discover the value.
Coral calcium, only $7.50. Discover the selection. Glucosamine chondroitin, only $7.35.
Discover the quality.
Natural vitamin E, only $2.95. Discover the convenience. Natural vitamin C, only $1.15.
Discover the best way to buy the finest quality vitamins, minerals, and herbs right from home at incredible 70% savings.
CoQ10, only $4.80.
Discover Puritan's Pride, America's #1 shop-at-home vitamin catalog.
Saw Palmetto, only $2.90.
Over 4 million people nationwide trust the Puritan's Pride catalog for all their vitamin needs.
Noni juice, only $8.95.
Call now.
Call now.
Call now for your free 70% off Puritan's Pride catalog and discover the smart way to buy vitamins. Ester C, only $4.65.
All Puritan's Pride products have a 100% one-year money-back guarantee.
What are you waiting for?
Call now for your free Puritan's Pride catalog and receive a coupon for $5 off your first order. Call 1-800-403-0707 right now.
Ready to take control of your credit card debt?
Credit Guard of America cut my monthly payments in half.
Credit Guard of America is a non-profit service that's helped thousands of people to move on with their lives.
Credit Guard of America saved me over $13,000 in interest fees alone.
Call now to reduce your monthly payments. Cut the interest rates on your credit cards by up to half and get your unsecured debt paid off years earlier.
Don't you owe it to yourself to work with a real non-profit service? Certified counselors are standing by.
Call 800-413-0862.
In Nebraska, we know how to grow things, including thick, lush grass. Combine that grass with the state's diverse terrain and challenging layouts, and you have some of the best golfing in the country. In fact, 3 Nebraska courses are ranked in Golf Week's top 100 modern courses in America. Come on, grab a club and discover why our golfing reputation is growing every day. In Nebraska, America's frontier. I think he's found some of that lush grass.
Phone calls and mail since he made the decision last week, some of them threatening his life. About 300 people last night attending a rally there to support the troops and to protest the mayor. He says he backs our military, but just wants to keep control over what gets posted on city property. No Easter egg roll this year at the White House. It's been replaced with a smaller event for the children of troops in Iraq for security reasons. Press Secretary Ari Fleischer saying about 12,000 parents and children of active duty and reserve troops will be invited to the White House on April 21st. A federal appeals court upholding the convictions in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. The court finding the convictions of Ramzi Youssef and his accomplices, quote, carefully, impartially, and commendably conducted, and denying it was proper to prosecute the men in the United States since they conspired to inflict injury on this country. The judge questioning the government's handling of the case of the suspected 20th hijacker, Zacarias Moussaoui. She says prosecutors are acting in a shroud of secrecy. Moussaoui's complained about all the pleadings, orders, and court opinions that the government's classified. The judge agrees, saying she wonders about the ability to prosecute him in open court. She's given the government till late next week to explain why the documents are being kept a secret. President Bush is saying federal health officials and telling them that the authority to quarantine Americans sick with a mystery illness known as SARS is a go. Severe acute respiratory syndrome, as it's known, killing at least 85 people worldwide, infecting 2,300 more, and proving to be highly contagious. Researchers at the National Institutes of Health now working on a SARS vaccine. They're doing that even though they're not completely sure what causes that virus. And now from our newsrooms coast to coast, Fox reports across America. Florida, 3 tour buses filled with high school students crashing into each other near Sanford. Cops say the first bus stopped for traffic on Interstate 4, and the other buses just slammed right into it. About 60 people hurt, but none seriously. Cops citing the drivers of the second and third buses for careless driving. Massachusetts, a twin-engine plane crashing into an industrial building in Leominster and igniting a huge fireball. The pilot requesting an unscheduled landing just before dropping off the radar. The crash killing 6 of the 7 on board. Georgia, a possible change for the state flag. the governor proposing a completely new design. It resembles the first flag of the Confederacy, but does not have the divisive symbol. If the legislature approves the plan, the new flag will be used right away. Next year, voters would decide whether to keep it. Washington. It's cherry blossom time in the nation's capital. They're a little late this year. The Cherry Blossom Festival happens the last week of March. And that's a Fox Watch. Across America. Iraqi TV showing pictures of what's supposed to be Saddam Hussein touring the streets in Iraq, getting mobbed by a cheering crowd. But more on whether it was really Saddam. We'll get an update on Operation Iraqi Freedom from Central Command in Doha. As the humanitarian aid flows in from Kuwait, coalition troops try to clear southern Iraq of Saddam's forces. We're live in Kuwait City. Connecting with the locals through the love of sport. Some British troops taking on some Iraqis in a soccer game. The details as Fox reports tonight.
You're watching the Fox Report with Shepard Smith on the network America trusts for fair and balanced news.
How good is your game plan? No matter what the conditions, Oppenheimer Funds has always believed in sticking to the fundamentals, a strategy that's proven itself time and time again. Oppenheimer Funds, the right way to invest.
Announcing non-drowsy allergy medicine you can take right when you need it.
It's Alivert. New Alivert starts dissolving the instant it touches your tongue, without water.
So Alivert is non-drowsy relief you can take inside, outside, in your car, wherever you are.
Get prescription strength non-drowsy 24-hour relief. Even Claritin can't beat. New quick dissolving Alivert.
Allergy medicine you can take right when you need it, wherever you are.
Hey, you're going to love this new quick rent at National Car Rental. When you get to the airport, they let you choose your own car. Whatever make and model you want. Whatever color you want. You can walk right past the counter. And you don't stand in any lines.
All you need is a major credit card and access to the internet. You rent online at nationalcar.com.
They ought to call it quick and easy. Bypass the counter. You don't have to stand in line. Choose your own car. Click, click, click on the computer.
It's all about me, Rent. Huh?
Choose the rental car company that lets you choose your own car. Quick rent at nationalcar.com.
Stay the course. Keep your focus. It's how champions stay champions. In investing, the same holds true. Concentrate on your long-term goals. Talk to your advisor about Oppenheimer Funds. The right way to invest.
Tonight,
coalition special operations have been very busy all around Iraq.
The latest from the front lines.
This is the fight they came here for.
The most up-to-the-minute coverage.
U.S. forces close in on Baghdad.
Operation Iraqi Freedom. At 8, it's the O'Reilly Factor. At 9, watch Hannity and Combs. At 10, Greta goes on the record.
Private First Class Jessica Lynch is apparently getting her appetite back. Now giving the kitchen at Landstuhl Medical Center in Germany requests for her favorite foods. Commander of the hospital says the 19-year-old's first order was chocolate, right? Nope, turkey, applesauce, and steamed carrots. Would Mom be proud? And despite multiple injuries, they say she's in a good mood.
She is jovial. She is talking with staff. She has a friend here, a close friend of hers from her unit that has accompanied her.
Well, Lynch has talked on the phone to her family back in Palestine, West Virginia, a town that eagerly awaits the American hero's return. In a Fox report now from senior correspondent Rita Cosby.
Shep, spirits are high here in Palestine, West Virginia, as the family of Private First Class Jessica Lynch is waiting to be reunited with the woman that America is now calling a hero. The doctor at Landstuhl Hospital in Germany, where she is being treated, says the overall prognosis for the former Iraqi prisoner is excellent. She's said to be in good spirits, joking with doctors, despite the fact that she has several injuries that will take some time to heal. They include 2 broken legs, a broken arm, plus a fractured right foot, right ankle, and spine. So far, neither the doctors nor the military will say how she sustained those injuries, but military sources say she was tortured during her 9 days in captivity by Iraqi Fedayeen forces. And now we're learning more details as to how the U.S. military was tipped off about Jessica still being alive. 2 Iraqis played vital roles. One, a doctor at the Saddam hospital where she was being held, slipped a note to the U.S. Marines. Another, an attorney married to a nurse at that hospital, saw Jessica being repeatedly slapped and walked 18 miles to give U.S. Marines a layout of the hospital. So detailed, he showed them which room she was in and how many guards were outside her door. Jessica's family called those men courageous and brave and said they will be thanked appropriately in the future. In the meantime, they hope to see Jessica in the coming days. Shep, back to you.
Rita, thanks. We are Fox News Channel. This is the Fox Report. It's the bottom of the hour. Time for the top of the news. Saddam has lost his airport. It's now just called Baghdad International. Coalition troops guarding it, as Fox reports tonight, so Army engineers can inspect the runways. Kurdish fighters joining forces with American troops in northern Iraq. They're headed to Mosul, Iraq's 3rd largest city, as Saddam sees another part of his empire falling. President Bush and the British Prime Minister Tony Blair planning another summit, this one in Northern Ireland. They say they'll be talking about peace in the Middle East and the future of Iraq. Coalition air power putting more dents in the Iraqi regime. U.S. Central Command releasing this video of an attack on command and control facilities that they say is in western Iraq, and saying its ground forces are cutting off key escape routes.
They're maintaining effective control of roads leading into or out of Iraq and roads between Baghdad and Tikrit.
Tikrit, of course, is Saddam's hometown, but is he even in any condition to try to escape? We have Team Fox coverage continuing again now of Operation Iraqi Freedom. William Lajeunesse live in Kuwait City. But first, the top story at the bottom of the hour from David Lee Miller at Central Command. David Lee?
Shepard, Saddam Hussein, or someone with an incredible likeness to the Iraqi leader, appeared not just once, but twice today on state-run television. And now, for more than any time since the start of the war, it appears that there is proof that the Iraqi leader might very well be alive. Let's first about his first appearance today on television. This was a speech to the Iraqi people. He urged them to continue their fight against the coalition. But what made his appearance especially noteworthy here was the fact that he made a specific reference to the March 23rd downing of an Apache chopper. While there is still no conclusive proof that this was the real Saddam, many analysts believe that this was the Iraqi leader and not one of his reported doubles. Hours later, he was back on the tube one more time, now walking along the streets of downtown Baghdad as crowds there chanted in Arabic, "With our blood and souls, we redeem you." The Al Jazeera satellite channel here in Qatar said that the tape was recorded shortly before dusk on Friday, but again, no way to tell for certain. CENTCOM officials have their doubts. They point to the fact that temperatures today soared to about 100 degrees in Baghdad, and many do not appear dressed for such warm temperatures. Also not clear again is if this was a Saddam lookalike. Now, as the world watched these latest Saddam videos, there was another broadcast with a more ominous message. The Al Jazeera satellite channel, again based here in Qatar, today put on the air video of 2 women vowing to commit suicide attacks against Americans. Al Jazeera said the 2 are responsible for a suicide bomb attack in northwestern Iraq near the Haditha Dam that killed 3 coalition troops and wounded 2 others. During that video broadcast on Al Jazeera, the women pledged to sacrifice themselves in a holy war against Americans, Britons, and Israelis. And that is a pledge that they have now appeared to fulfill. Iraqi officials, meanwhile, Shepard, have said that as many as 3,000 people have entered Iraq because they would like to become martyrs. CENTCOM officials, though, have their doubts and say so far they simply have not seen that many people entering the country. That's the latest from CENTCOM in Doha. Back to you in New York.
David Lee, thanks. Allied troops stopping 2 men on a roadblock site out about 15 miles from the city of Basra. They're now questioning them about the deaths of 2 British soldiers that Prime Minister Tony Blair says were executed.
They may have been involved or may have information concerning the disappearance of some of our soldiers, and we take them in for further inquiries. But this is our campaign against the regime, not the people of Iraq.
One of the men is a leader in Saddam's Ba'ath Party. Meanwhile, the first significant shipment of aid is now on its way from Kuwait to Basra. And a Fox report now from William Lajeunesse live in Kuwait City. William?
Well, Shepard, you know, you're talking about those checkpoints. Those are probably the most important interface between the U.S. military and the Iraqi civilians in this war. Of course, they are incredibly dangerous, but increasingly important, not just to capture the ex-Iraqi Republican Guards, but also to make contacts and develop leads to identify and locate those Fedayeen strongholds. Of course, the best example of that is in Basra, where the Brits have all the roads in and out of the city blocked. The latest, 8 Iraqi dead in house-to-house fighting. But 1,000 diehard Fedayeen are still holed up in that city, even as the Brits continue to destroy Iraqi tanks and APCs, thanks in part to local assistance. Now, in Najaf, scattered fighting after that tense standoff Friday near the Ali Mosque. Today, artillery, major explosions, and visible tracer fire. Civilians stayed inside. A heavy coalition presence remains to dig out Iraqi irregulars who took sanctuary in that mosque, one of Islam's holiest sites. Now, power is out in Baghdad again. That means spoiled food and smelly streets. But elsewhere, humanitarian aid is reaching the corners of Iraq. Medicine to Basra, flour to Erbil, and drinking water to Qasr. Critical, not just to the military campaign, but for the future stability of Iraq. Half that country is under age 15. Dysentery and malnutrition are a chronic problem. Today, aid convoys protected by coalition forces deliver fresh water to Zubair and daily rations to Qasr. Red Cross brought supplies to 4 Basra hospitals. Greater security, say officials, is the only thing holding more shipments back. Warehouses in Kuwait and Jordan are jammed with supplies, cargo ships waiting to dock. The only problem is that Qasr only has 2 piers out of 12 actually open, have been cleared for explosives. They say need to dredge in Qasr. More importantly, in Basra, that shipping channel is still filled with rusting hunks of ships. And then they have to clear that and move an old oil tanker, still filled with about 1 million gallons of oil, before they can open shipping lanes up to Baghdad. Shepard, back to you.
David Lee Miller, live for us in Kuwait City. The Muslim call to prayer being heard for the first time in 15 years in southern Iraq. That's just one of the signs of change in the area. Many schools, we're told, are reopening, and huge murals and portraits of Saddam now being painted over. British troops saying they see themselves as the facilitators of this change.
We've been here for just 1 week. Since liberating this town, we've seen fear disappear. They've handed in over 200 weapons, and the light and the water have come on again. But the substantial changes, first of all, have been school has begun again. The children are back at school and learning. And today on Juma, the worship has begun.
But Allied troops also saying that real change can only come from the Iraqis themselves. British troops also continuing the campaign to win the hearts and minds of locals in the south, taking on a group of Iraqis in a soccer match, football as they call it, sitting on the side of Atlantic, really. A crowd gathering to watch. The Iraqis winning that match, too, 9-3. Democratic presidential hopeful John Kerry saying the United States needs its own regime change, just like Iraq has. Top Republicans now ripping the Massachusetts senator. Senate Majority Leader Bill Frist calling the comment partisan and petty and said only for political gain. Kerry made the statement on Wednesday during a trip to New Hampshire. The Vietnam vet not backing down, saying he will not be questioned about his patriotism, adding he's earned the right to express his views. Congress agreeing to give President Bush nearly $80 billion for the war in Iraq and Homeland Security. In separate late-night votes yesterday, the House and Senate passed similar bills. Operation Iraqi Freedom getting more than $60 billion, the rest going to Iraqi reconstruction, national security, and aid for the airline industry. A mixed day on the street as investors wonder what happens when the war's over. The tech-heavy NASDAQ Composite Index dropping 13 points to close at 1384. The blue chips up, just 37, but up at 82.77. In the Biz Briefs tonight, job losses last month higher than expected. U.S. companies slashing more than 100,000 people from their payrolls. The unemployment rate holding steady at just under 6%. The reason? Thousands of job seekers just gave up, dropped out of the work pool. The government working to avoid defaulting on the national debt. The Treasury Department planning to try an accounting maneuver that'll free up about $12 billion on paper. The government has asked Congress to raise the $6.4 trillion debt ceiling.
Coming up.
The U.S. and Canada have been close allies, but the war in Iraq taking a toll on the relationship. And we'll take a look at the latest images from the war from photographers on the front lines in Iraq and ordinary American children reaching out to help people of Iraq as Fox reports tonight.
How do you invest to help secure your future? You start with your dreams. And Edward Jones.
My life, my world, it all begins with a dream.
Edward Jones.
The scorching pain of heartburn. The difference you feel only with Gaviscon. It quickly forms a soothing protective barrier that helps keep acid down for hours. For the relief you need, feel the soothing power of Gaviscon.
Isn't it? For in-your-face home theater action, come to Best Buy. From Sony Plasma TVs to Bose Surround Sound, we'll help find the system that's right for you. Get into the action at Best Buy.
The crisis with Iraq. Our team Washington has updates and in-depth reports from the White House, the Pentagon, and our nation's capital. Stay with the Fox News Channel. Real journalism, fair and balanced.
The White House says 49 nations are part of the coalition of the willing, but our neighbor to the north is not one of them. Operation Iraqi Freedom straining ties between Canada and the United States. In a Fox report now from Allison Camerata.
When the U.S. launched its war on terrorism in Afghanistan, American and Canadian soldiers stood shoulder to shoulder. But in the battle against Iraq, Canada has bowed out, refusing to join the international coalition against Saddam Hussein. Anti-war protesters cheered the decision, and anti-American sentiment followed. A member of parliament summed it up with a quip accidentally caught on tape. Anti-war sentiment has spilled over into some unlikely quarters. A visiting Pee Wee hockey team from Massachusetts met with such intense anti-Americanism, insults, obscene gestures, even booing at our national anthem, they now say they'll think twice before returning to Canada.
There was nasty comments all weekend. I think they proved that they're not our friendly neighbors to the north any longer.
University of Toronto professor John Curtin says Canada's leaders have political reasons for their stand.
So that constant desire to accentuate the differences, to maintain the distance, to always remind Canadians of their assumed moral superiority is really of the essence of the National Unity Project and crusade up here.
Recent polls show Canadians are split on the topic, but the trend is moving in America's favor.
We have been misrepresented by the Christian government, that he has basically brought shame upon the citizens of Canada by continuing this anti-American sort of rhetoric.
Cherry Tab organized a pro-American rally in Toronto. Attending were members of Parliament who believe the tide is turning.
I think the Canadian public are going to increasingly demonstrate their support for our friends and allies in the United States, and I think we're all going to work to make sure that this situation never happens again.
In Toronto, Allison Camerata, Fox News.
Well, Europe's three biggest opponents of the attack on Iraq insisting that the United Nations should lead the rebuilding of the country. The foreign ministers of Germany, France, and Russia saying the United States and British forces should have a special role in securing Iraq, but that's it. The trio claims only the United Nations has legitimate authority to play a central role in Iraq when the war is over. The Secretary of State for the United States, Colin Powell, saying the United Nations will play a part, but did not give details. A top Russian Muslim cleric proposing a jihad or holy war against the United States. He also wants to create a special fund to buy weapons and supplies for the people of Iraq. But the head of Russia's main Muslim community nixing the ideas, saying everyone wants a quick end to this war, and saying calling for a jihad is completely pointless. Japan's defense minister is saying he supports a bill to allow his country to respond more quickly to military threats. it would let the Japanese launch a preemptive strike. The comments coming as the nuclear standoff with North Korea is increasing tension in the region. Japan has an anti-war constitution, and the country has a defense-only military force. Thousands of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank showing their support for Saddam Hussein, and in the meantime, Israeli troops uncovering an explosives lab and arresting a senior member of the militant Islamic Jihad group. Israeli forces also involved in a 2-hour gun battle with Palestinians in the West Bank refugee camp. Tanks and helicopters backing the troops as they search for militants. The firefight wounding 4 Palestinians and 1 soldier. 3,000 people in Bahrain taking to the streets to protest the war in Iraq. The crowd chanting, "Death to America, death to Israel." The Kingdom of Bahrain floated the idea of offering Saddam Hussein asylum before the war started. It is also home to the U.S. 5th Fleet at a naval base in the town where this protest was held, the town of Matama. A group of men armed with knives and guns taking 50 hostages on a boat in Cuba in an attempt to make it to the United States. That hijacking leading to a standoff with Cuban police. The drama ending when Special Forces commandos moved in and arrested the men. The raid launched after hostages started jumping overboard. No word on how many suspects were arrested or who they are. A jet crash in India and a mudslide in Bolivia, part of our trip around the world in 80 seconds. Japan, a pair of explosions outside a U.S. military base near Tokyo. Police finding 2 steel pipes nearby, pipes which they say could have been used to fire projectiles. No damage or injuries reported. Police saying leftists opposed to the war in Iraq may be to blame. Back in November, a similar attack took place at another American base in Japan. Australia, the government working to keep the potentially deadly SARS virus from spreading. 3 Canadian children from the same family being isolated in a Melbourne hospital, one of them being called a probable case of severe acute respiratory syndrome, the pneumonia-like disease killing about 80 people worldwide and infecting more than 2,300. India, an Air Force fighter jet crashing into a northern village, the pilot bailing out safely from the Russian MiG-23, but the crash killing 5 people on the ground and injuring about 24 others. Still no word on a cause. Bolivia, a landslide sweeping through a mining town. Rescue teams using picks, shovels, and their bare hands to look for victims, saying there's little hope of finding more survivors. The slide killing 14, about 50 others are missing. Bad weather and dangerous roads making it tough for rescue workers. And that's a wrap on this Fox trip around the world in 80 seconds. New developments inside Baghdad, and you are looking live just about 18 minutes before the hour of 5 a.m. on a Saturday. Anti-aircraft fire seen throughout the night sky over just the last couple of minutes. No word on whether there were jets overhead or whether explosions were seen, but you're looking in an east and slightly southern direction. There have been a number of explosions in central and eastern Baghdad proper today. No word at all of military forces making their way into the city. It's believed they still control the airport, and many troops still moving up from the north and up from the south and down from the north. First light should be interesting. We'll get you updates, and should there be any more explosions in the sky, we'll take you live to Baghdad as Fox reports tonight. A Denver radio station being extra careful about an anti-war song. Westward.com reports that the rock station polled more than 2,000 listeners before playing In a World Gone Mad by the Beastie Boys. A third of the people surveyed said they liked the track more because it was a protest song. 16% liked it less, and more than half didn't care. The song now on the station's playlist. Pearl Jam's not being so cautious during a concert in Denver. Lead singer Eddie Vedder Tuesday night using a mic stand to impale a mask of President Bush. Dozens of people walked out of there, others booed as Vedder told the crowd he opposes the president and is against the war. He says the band supports the troops, adding, quote, "We're just confused on how wanting to bring them back safely all of a sudden becomes non-support. We love them." He is accused of the unthinkable, hurling grenades into the tents of his own comrades. Now what crimes that American soldier may face. And it's live to the Pentagon for a late update on day 16 of Operation Iraqi Freedom. the day that saw 2 new appearances of Saddam Hussein, or at least someone who looks like him, and saw the noose tighten even more around the capital city.
You're watching the Fox Report with Shepard Smith, and we are Fox News Channel.
What are you waiting for?
A loan officer. I'm trying to get a home equity line.
I'm from E-Loan. Unlike this bank, we'll get you a decision in minutes. Here.
I'm approved.
We'll even come to you to sign the papers. And you'll have your money as quick as 12 days. So you get your cash fast at a great rate. Still want to wait for that loan officer?
Not anymore.
A bank shouldn't come between you and your money. That's why there's E-Loan. Apply now at eloan.com or call 1-800-ELOAN22.
Are you ready to save $200? Gateway announces $200 off our fully featured 300S home desktop, featuring an Intel 2.2 gigahertz processor, plus a CDRW DVD combo, a 17-inch monitor, and of course, shipping's always included. Are you ready? Call, click, or come in today for Ready Tech Go savings, only from Gateway, featuring the Intel Celeron processor.
Here's a little piece of information that could really help you. If you have diabetes and you're on Medicare, your testing supplies may be covered. Monitors, test strips, lancets, type 1 or type 2 diabetes doesn't matter. Your diabetes testing supplies may be covered. Mine are. To find out if you qualify, call Liberty Medical. They make things easy. Liberty is a Medicare participating provider. They bill Medicare and your insurance company for you. There are no claim forms to fill out, nothing to pay up front. And Liberty delivers right to your door with no charge for shipping. It starts with a single, simple phone call. If you have diabetes and you're on Medicare, call right now to see if you qualify. Liberty has helped hundreds of thousands of people manage their diabetes and live better lives. They can help you, too.
For more information, call Liberty Medical at 1-800-561-4198.
A paratrooper from the 101st Airborne Division now being charged in a grenade attack on our own troops. The military announcing the charges today. They include murder, attempted murder, and a number of others under military law. He's accused of lobbing 3 grenades into officers' tents at Camp Pennsylvania in Kuwait. That attack last month killed 2 soldiers and wounded 14 more. The sergeant could face the death penalty. A Marine's mother is mourning the loss of her son, as Fox reports tonight. Lance Corporal Thomas Slocum, killed almost 2 weeks ago during a firefight near An-Nasiriyah. The 22-year-old from Colorado enlisted in the Marines after graduating from high school. His mother says she's received lots of cards and emails of support, but she says it's Thomas who gives her the most comfort.
The thing that's given me comfort is the fact that, number one, he was doing what he loved. Number two, the nation, the country, the state, the city, everybody views him as a hero.
Well, Terry Cooper says her son's body will probably be buried at Fort Logan National Cemetery in Denver. Family and friends packing a Baltimore church for the funeral of one of the first American casualties, Marine Staff Sergeant Kendall Waters Bay. He was the crew chief on a helicopter that crashed 2 weeks ago in Kuwait. 3 other Marines and 8 British Marines also killed in the crash. Waters Bay leaves behind a wife and a 10-year-old son.
I'm very sad right now because my father, he's gone. I'm never going to see him again.
Waters Bay was buried with military honors in a veterans cemetery in suburban Baltimore. The USNS Comfort accepting wounded from both sides from its location in the Persian Gulf. They began coming in a week ago. Doctors on board treating Iraqi prisoners as civilians as well as coalition forces. The Comfort's a fully stocked floating hospital and can handle any sort of medical situation short of heart surgery. The goal of Operation Iraqi Freedom, ridding the country of its oppressive regime and giving freedom to its people, according to the White House. Those people will need a lot of help before they can stand on their own, and some of that aid is already coming in from everyday Americans. In a Fox report now from Catherine Herridge.
I feel that in any case, war
always be the last resort, but as we've seen, our president really feels that there is nothing else that we can do.
It makes us feel really good because it really helps to know that we can just bring in stuff and do this, and they can be shipped and they can help a whole town in Iraq.
Images of war resonating with young Americans who are donating time, money, and a little piece of themselves.
Americans are probably one of the most charitable nations in the world, particularly private giving. Iraq, like many other crises in the world, is a place where if a charity chosen well can make an enormous contribution to people overseas.
At the Friends Academy in Locust Valley, New York, the kids hooked up with the American Friends Service Committee, gathering health kits with shampoo and soap, Band-Aids, and brushes.
I feel like I am doing my part by doing this because we're not at war with their people, and they're just regular people who used to live regular lives.
Those items will be put into the hands of individual Iraqis. It's very, very powerful and moving experience.
Packing up the kits is a feel-good project, though humanitarian experts say cash donations can really go a long way. Just $300 buys one school in a box, which has enough education materials for 80 Iraqi kids. Government help is on the way as well. The U.S. Agency for International Development has given $10 million to the World Health Organization, and $3.5 billion is coming straight from the Defense Department to improve a post-war Iraq. And while sending a bottle of shampoo is only a small gesture, these kids say they're doing what they can for Operation Iraqi Freedom.
I think that if we can get Saddam out of power, then we'll be connected with those people. They'll respect us and we'll respect them.
Catherine Herridge, Fox News.
Well, some images from the war now from the still photographers who are out in the field risking life and limb truly to bring us the pictures from this war. And this one's a British soldier who's preparing now to dissect or disarm a bomblet, and this is a somewhat complicated process from time to time. A lot of folks can get hurt, and a lot of folks are busy doing just this sort of work. This from the U.S.-led coalition leaflet distributed to Iraqi civilians, and it reads, "This time, we won't abandon you," and it refers, of course, to what happened in the south, in Basra, and all the rest. There is a history there that the Iraqis don't take too kindly to. This one, U.S. soldiers taking cover inside a Bradley fighting vehicle as the enemy fire attacks their position on the runway of the airport. The initial reports from this airport were that they hadn't hit the runways, that they weren't bombed and they'd be able to use them. Now we know, of course, they're going to need a little repair, but they say that shouldn't take too long. And here, U.S. soldiers are searching an Iraqi military compound. That's just south of Baghdad, and every time they go on a search, according to our reporters on the field, it's as if they're walking into an ambush, preparing for one just in case, and you can see that's going on right here. Richard Jones here, U.S. ambassador to Kuwait, greets anti-mine bottlenose dolphins at Camp Patriot in Kuwait. We've talked about these anti-mine dolphins and gotten hundreds and hundreds of letters from you saying, when they search for these mines, if they blow one up, do the dolphins die? We're told there hasn't been a single case of that. A French protester here, if you can imagine such a thing, boycott the products of America, and they're doing a great deal of that across France. Can anyone say Evian? And U.S. Army Bradley fighting vehicle patrols next to the Euphrates River in an Iraqi city, and it's been a series of gorgeous days with lots of green and lots of sand, depending on the moment, according to my good friend Rick Leventhal, who is still on the move, and still on the move, and moving. And in Baghdad, the bombing resumes. U.S. planes and American artillery pummeling the Iraqi capital city ahead of an anticipated battle for the heart of Iraq. Coalition forces guarding Baghdad International Airport. Saddam's men threatening some kind of non-conventional action tonight against our troops there, but night is fading. Major Garrett at the Pentagon for a late wrap for us. Hi, Major.
Hello, Shepard. Let's just focus on one issue tonight before we go. The importance of the capture of Saddam Hussein International Airport, now renamed, of course, Baghdad International Airport. What does it mean to coalition operations? First and foremost, helicopters are now landing there, bringing more troops. Soon, the runways, which now have craters on them because coalition forces bombed them. Why? Well, so the Iraqi leadership couldn't take off before coalition forces got to Baghdad. Those runways will soon be repaired, and then planes will land with more troops, more supplies, and yes, humanitarian aid. But another crucial element of this, Shepard, is coalition forces can now stage even larger numbers of special operations personnel from this airport and conduct raids into the city, raids that will be crucial to that city's falling into coalition hands. Back to you in New York.
No doubt about it. Major Garrett, thank you, live from the Pentagon, and that's your news as Fox reports this Friday, April the 4th, 2003. I'm Shepard Smith in New York. For all of us on the Fox Report, thanks for trusting us for your news and information. I hope to see you back here for our West Coast primetime coverage of the war on terror and the war in Iraq. That's 8 p.m. Pacific time, and a late night update on the East Coast, 11 p.m. And until then, with America at war and on high alert for terror, stay brave, stay aware, and stay with Fox.
The Fox Report with Shepard Smith. A presentation of Fox News Channel, the network America trusts, period.